So first and foremost, I want to thank you for being here today. I want to thank you for being here. Because a part of what it tells me is that you recognize the power you have in this moment. To not just be shaped by events, but to actually shape events. You know, we find ourselves at this moment that feels so heavy, and you know it's heavy. You're feeling it every single day. I mean, I'm trying to turn off my news alerts so it's not the first thing I see in the morning because it's usually not good. But we find ourselves at this moment of great peril, but also a moment of great possibility for our communities, for our country, and for our future. Now, the peril aspect of it is real, and you know it all too well. We have a guy in the White House who has spent every single day making life worse for the American people. You know, and in usual circumstances, that's just kind of a political thing that the people kind of say. But we see it happening. You have a guy who destroyed the stock market, your 401ks, and then went and gave himself an award at his own golf course for winning a fake championship that he made up in his damn head. That's what the President of the United States is doing as people are watching their life savings slip through their fingers. That's what he's doing. Making up an award that he gives to him to himself. I mean, this is like weird stuff. We have a guy in the White House who spends every single day trying to divide up the American people by region, by race, to try to tell us and try to convince us that we will be made great depending on how many people we can collectively hate. But one of the things I like to highlight about this guy and about this moment, as dangerous as he is, Donald Trump is not unique in the course of history. He's not that special, actually. He is not the first would-be tyrant or bigot to get in office. He's not the first. You even think about Make America Great Again, even that is not unique. That's even something he recycled from somebody else. So he's a guy with a recycled slogan, with recycled ideas, who has no vision for the future of this country. And I think we all understand that. But here is the truth also about this moment. A fight fails without a dream. Hear me on this. A fight fails without a dream. Artie's heard me say this a bunch of times. I say this all the time. I am not a Democrat because I hate Republicans. Hear me on that. I'm not a Democrat because I don't like the other party. When I got registered as a Democrat, the only thing I knew about Donald Trump is that he had a cameo in Home Alone 2. That's all I knew about that guy when I got registered. I'm a Democrat because, just like Artie, I grew up in a working poor family in North Philly. If you know Temple University, you know exactly where I'm from. My dad was trained as a social worker right there at the university. And one day he was lucky enough to meet a cute little thing named Kelly, my mama. And now, I like to say this because it really is true. I got the best parents in the world, okay, like second only to your parents, who I assume were fantastic. But my parents, as great as they were, they did not like each other. And so, they didn't, it's true. And so what that meant for me is they divorced when I was pretty young. I got my first job at 12 years old, washing dishes at a little restaurant. And even as things were tough, my life was made possible by Democrats who faced perilous moments with a lot of possibility and decided to do something for people they might not ever have the opportunity to meet. Even in tough circumstances, I had health care because of a little program called CHIP that you may have heard of. Even when we found ourselves moving around, we were able to afford housing because of something called a housing voucher. You may have heard about that. We didn't get to have everything we wanted, but we could go to that grocery store with limited means and be able to check out with something because Democrats fought for food assistance. So I say all that to say that working families like ours across Florida, across this country, need a strong Democratic Party. They need a strong Democratic Party. And they need a party that's not just animated by what we're against, but is animated by what we are for. So let me be crystal clear about what Democrats are for. Democrats believe that you should be able to have one good family-sustaining job backed up by a union. Not 4, 5, and 6 jobs. One good job. That job should afford you the opportunity to buy a home in a neighborhood that's safe. And that if you decide to have a family, that you get to raise your kids in that safe home and send them out to go to a good, fully funded public school. And that school ought to put that young person in a position to go out and one day get a family-sustaining job of their own or start a small business. And that if you get the beautiful gift of being able to live long enough to retire, you ought to be able to retire with dignity. Yes. And you ought to be able to retire in the home where you raised your damn kids in the first place. Yes. That's what we believe. And along the course of that continuum, if you get sick, you ought to be able to go to the doctor. And you ought to be able to fill the prescription when you leave the appointment. That is what we believe. And what we do not believe is that we ought to rip away that dream, rip away that possibility to give tax breaks to people who are doing just fine. They're doing just fine.
More than fine.
More than fine. Yeah. And so in this moment, here is what the Democratic Party is doing. A part of what we're doing, and a part of what all good leaders do, is remind you of the power that you have. We already have a party that's caught up in the cult of somebody's personality. We don't need it on our side.
Amen.
Listen, and I say to folks who say, oh, Malcolm, that was a great event, a great speech. I said, my husband would not join my cult. I don't think you should join. He knows me pretty well. What we need to recognize is that our foundational documents, you might have heard of them, this thing called the Constitution. I know they haven't heard about it in the White House, but we have this thing called the Constitution. And it starts with 3 critical words. We the people. Not they, the billionaires. Not them, the corporations. And I'll be a little self-effacing to say it also doesn't say us, the politicians. It says we the people. And so in this moment, it is not good enough to feel like you're just going to give your power away to somebody who's going to solve the problem. These problems are too big. They're too entrenched for us to think somebody is going to come and save us. But we can save each other. We can save each other. And we are a party that believes in that and already talked about organizing. That's what organizing is about. About building power. About getting people to wake up out of this malaise that only folks who are well off and well connected have any good ideas or any capacity to make change in our communities and to impact our future. That is a lie. That is a lie. There is a great thinker that says the number one way that people give up their power is by thinking they don't have any. That's why yesterday was such a powerful reminder. Over 600,000 Americans showed up all across this country to say, hands off my health care, hands off my democracy, hands off my Social Security. They showed up because they are powerful, not just the people in office. So that's the first thing Democrats believe, that we need to see mass mobilization in this country that's driven from the ground up, not the top down. The second thing we do have to do collectively, and we have to do as a party, is we have to litigate. And I know we have a guy who doesn't like the courts, and the reason he doesn't like the courts is because he's losing, because he spends every day committing crimes. And it is critical for us as a party to not treat litigation as, well, Malcolm, that's nice, but that doesn't get him to resign. I did not come here with a plan to get him to resign. I wish I could. I wish I came here today and I could say, Sam said you can't tell anybody, but tomorrow, this guy's going to get in his Cybertruck and he's going to drive down and he's going to resign the presidency. That's not true. But it is critical that we litigate. And the Democratic Party is litigating. You might have saw the other day he tried to sign an executive order with his little Sharpie saying that he was going to take over federal elections. And what our chair under the leadership of Ken Martin said, and what our entire leadership team said, is we will see you in court. We will see you in court. And let me be very clear, we will win. We will win. And we will win like we have won so many of these lawsuits on a host of different issues that have been impacting the American people over the 73, 74 days, however many times he's been in office, days he's been in office. But the other thing we have to do is win elections. Turns out, you got to win elections. And here's the critical point. We cannot be a party that exists simply to elect the president every 4 years. We have to be a party that treats state rep with the same seriousness that we treat U.S. Senate. We have to be a party that treats folks running for mayor with the same level of effort that we treat folks who are running for Congress. We have to be a party that showers praise and attention on people who step up to be a local committee person in their party, just like we're going to watch all the debates of all the great people who are going to run for president. Because you understand this fundamental truth, and I know you understand it here in Florida. It was not in D.C. where they gerrymandered the maps out of recognition. That happened where you live. Linda McMahon, as crazy as she is, she wasn't the person banned in the books. They were getting banned at the school board where your kids go. When we talk about the ability to build affordable housing, that's not happening in D.C. They're making those decisions at the zoning board meeting you didn't go to. So we have to be a party that understands our power comes from each and every one of you, that we have a laser focus on electing people from the ground up, and that when those people get elected, they are focused on making it easy for people to have a family-sustaining job, and a house that they can afford, and a community that's safe, send their kid to a good school, and retire with a level of dignity. That's what we're about. That's what we're fighting for, and that's what we're going to achieve together. Thank you so much, and we really appreciate this opportunity. Thank you.